Are we in the middle, or in the beginning rather, of a third great awakening? That's a good question, Mr. Producer. I'm glad you asked. We're going to go ahead and talk about it today, along with some history and Nikki Knows Facts, and we're going to have some fun. We'll do the screw tape letters, God willing, some shenanigans with Steve. It'll be a good day. So stick around and join us as we watch our culture stray further every day. Jonathan Fiala in the chair of philosophy, hosting. To my right, I got Miss Nikki. How's it going?
It's good. It's good. It's been a good day so
Wonderful.
far.
So far,
For me.
day is young. To my left, I got Charlie. How's it going?
I'm here. Let's do it.
Steve, how's it going?
Man, it is going fantastic. Had a great day. And the past 3 days were even better.
Oh, you
at a
went,
men's
You
retreat.
were fishing.
yeah, you
Over to
were
Connor.
fishing. Yeah, I saw the fish.
Any days where you're out fishing, honestly, like that, those are good days. I
Yeah.
love to be able to go out and fish.
Did
That is
people
a
bring
and
their
it
own
was-
fish?
Yes, they did. And we had a great time with the men's ministry while we were there. Some fantastic time of fellowship and everything.
if you have a church that does not cater to a men's ministry, if it is not focused on men's things in addition to women's things, right now you see a lot of church programs are tuned to women. If you don't have one that's tuned to men, we're going to talk about that today. It is a mistake. It is a mistake. Our church, I think, balances that very well. I'm very, very glad and thankful for that. And of course, we got producing Ryan. How's it going, Ryan, the producer guy?
I'm good. How's everyone today?
Doing all right. I think we got a song review. We got a song review?
We do.
Oh,
You are the
ooh.
man.
Oh,
Okay.
all
So
right.
we're going to have fun with that. As teased, actually, the biggest issue, this potential rumbling of a great awakening that we're seeing right now, is being led by men. And this is kind of what I'm
All right.
alluding to. There is a hunger right now for young men to find something traditional. But I do want to say, we're going to break down some stats. It's not necessarily what some folks are making it out to be. We need to look at this really closely. And I want to compare historical awakenings in America to what we're seeing today. We're going to do a bit of compare, contrast. We're going to look at some of the words of these individuals who were involved in God's work here in the United States. And I want us to be leery of some traps that I see people falling into, especially on the right wing blogosphere. You see some of these thoughts that are, I think, misguided. So we're going to look at some of the stats and details. So, Mr. Producer, I want us to play this next clip. This is the first clip of the day. This is actually from, I believe, MSNBC, and they're doing a little expose on this newfangled movement of young men towards traditional values and traditional Christianity. So go ahead and play that. Be ready to pause it. Anyone in the room can pause. Go ahead and start it, sir.
20-year-old Owen Girard has changed.
I was on the steps of the Florida State Capitol, advocating for climate activism, the Green New Deal, all that stuff.
A lot. And then now,
And I'm a staunch conservative.
a conservative voter and a conservative Christian. What changed?
Well, really, it was the faith journey that really fundamentally transformed my political views.
For the first time in modern American history, more young men than women are claiming religious affiliation, a gender gap of 7%, while men under 30 who lean Republican have also outpaced Democrats for the first time in more than a decade.
You get aligned with other men that are like, hey, I actually have the same views as you. And it's like, it's okay to have that view.
Here at the Faith Forward Pastor Summit in Gainesville, Georgia, hosted by an arm of the conservative activist group Turning Point USA, the call for young conservative men
We're called to be biblical and we're called to be political.
is finding a bigger audience than ever before.
I had a burning desire in my heart, a heavenly desire that wasn't being filled by anything of this world.
Are you seeing more young men, Gen Z, come into the church?
Yeah, we are.
For Shane Winnings, who leads
Question is why?
the ministry group Promise Keepers,
What kind of man are you?
it's all part of a bigger strategy.
I think it's very intentional. And I think the messaging from the administration was very intentional.
The Trump administration.
Yeah, it was to win those kind of people.
Who?
And the young people, the men who want to be men.
If you fear culture, then you don't fear God.
Men who want to, or can be convinced to, return to what he calls traditional values.
We're seeing in this erosion where now anyone can be a family. Two men can be a family and they can adopt kids, which I think is problematic. Two women could be a family. They can adopt kids. Marriage doesn't mean anything anymore.
What threat is that to you if those two men love each other?
Because you can point statistically to our society being eroded from within because two men automatically create an unstable household because that is not God's design for a family.
And you think that hurts America?
Absolutely.
Which
More than
extends to
America.
policy issues that he believes are fundamentally against God.
When we talk about the intertwining of faith and politics, a lot of the messaging here is about eradicating wokeness.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, I think wokeness, is really anything that comes against God's design. It's this progressive mentality. Wokeness is like DEI. Wokeness is...
You think that's against God?
Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
How so?
Well, I mean, it is everything it claims to be against. DEI is discriminatory. It is racist. DEI says, what's your skin color and who do you sleep with? You're getting to the front of the line.
Can I push back on that?
Please.
My interpretation of DEI and affirmative action is essentially saying, not that you must promote me because I'm Black, but you are not allowed to discriminate against me.
But
That's not true.
already
Disagree with that.
Constitution and already a part of our laws. DEI has been used to push people to the front of the line who don't belong there.
If someone calls some points and says that's a DEI hire,
I think that's wrong too.
do you think they're pointing
Great
at you or do you think they're
response.
pointing at me?
I don't know. I'll tell you what, though, I think it's wrong to make a snap judgment. Like, that is not godly.
Because it assumes that the only people who can have good things are straight white men.
Exactly. And that's a problem.
I'm excited. You have your Bible?
So at Promise Keepers,
Pause it,
we
Mr.
are
Producer.
push-
And actually, let's go and bring it down just for a minute. That's at 3:38, so you know where to go. Thank you. What we're seeing here is a movement towards traditional values. And what we see specifically are the people who are being persecuted the most are coming to Christ.
Yes.
So I want to say this advisedly. Yes, there is an awakening happening. Don't get lost on why it's happening. Nikki, I know you have thoughts.
Well, I was very interested in her interpretation of DEI, which is completely wrong. His is correct. You come to the front of the line because of your preference.
Correct.
That's exactly right. But I think when you talk about God and what he was trying to share about it's against God, one of the things that Clarence Thomas said in a quote I heard was, just because there's a storm, north is still north.
Mm-hmm.
So just because we have this thing going on in our society, true north is always true north. God is truth. And there are no societies in the history of the world where two men or two women where that flourishes. There's nowhere. If this was common and normal, if this was what you were born with, there would be societies, because there's societies out there that don't know anything about God or about the Bible.
Let me push
Where
back.
are they?
Let me push back on you on this.
Okay.
This is natural. This is normal for mankind to devolve into this. And every society that has is dead. Why? They stop reproducing. It's antisocial. It's anti-societal.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't flourish.
Correct. It dies.
It dies. And so we have to look at that and say, okay, this died. This must be something wrong here, because this is not part of the world.
Correct. And let me be really clear in case someone's not understanding what I'm saying. It is natural for man to fall into his sin nature.
Yes, it is. I agree.
Unnatural.
Yes.
It is the nature that we were designed for is not what we yearn for in our sin.
I think the other piece that you need to build on too, Nikki did a great job of picking this out. And I'm not trying to come against this MSNBC or MS Now reporter. I appreciate her
having the conversation.
Doing the conversation.
She had the conversation, yes.
I think what she would benefit from is getting out of her echo chamber, because he had a lot of things that he was spouting off. They were definitely surface answers, but you just brought up a detail. It's problematic. Why? Because two men can't reproduce. Two women together is problematic. Why? Two women can't reproduce. What happens to the family structure? If you take a look at the whole of family within the Bible, you can easily see it comes against God's design. So that's number one. Number two, the issue of being brought to the front of the line. He is spot on with that. And her response was spot on wrong. And here's why. It's not an issue of discrimination. It's not discrimination because it doesn't even get an opportunity to happen.
Correct.
It's pronounced as law.
You're filling a quota.
You're filling a quota.
And-
So her response to that was wrong. And that's where I wish she could have the opportunity to get out of the echo chamber and see it for what it really is.
You know, one thing that is interesting when when you have conversations with people like her, the first response is, well, that's discrimination.
You're racist.
Yeah.
Right. Or you're pointing that at me because why? Because she was black. Well, no, it's just discrimination regardless of who it's against.
Correct.
Doesn't matter who.
Correct.
Doesn't matter if you're black, white, yellow, green, purple.
Right.
It's discrimination.
Yes. And so I was working with a group for my day job, and I was in my vocation, I was working with some unionists, and they were complaining about how Trump has crippled collective bargaining in America. Well, it's a simple thing. It's a thing is known for what it is by what it does. Its purpose is known by what it does. What is collective bargaining for unions? This was a union event. And they said, well, Trump is coming in and destroying the unions and he's destroying our rights. Why? Why did he take away the TSA union? Why did he take away their right for collective bargaining? Because they were weaponizing it for a political end. It was no longer about wages, about safety, which there is a place for unions, okay? Just to be clear, there is a place for collective bargaining. And a lot of conservatives just shrunk up, got all upset.
They shrill on that.
There is a place where unions have gone bad is they have stepped outside of the sphere of saying, no, you cannot make us work in these safety standards. We're all going to collectively organize and say, if you are putting someone's life on the line, that's unacceptable, especially if it is done systemically, right? No, you can't underpay us. We are going to make sure that there's a standard held. No, you cannot bring foreign workers in. That's what a union's for. That's what a union's for.
And
Once it starts to be weaponized politically,
Yeah.
it has changed its purpose. So it's the same thing with DEI. What I would have said a little bit differently is the purpose of DEI was to brace against systemic racism. What it has done now is it has enforced a different sort.
Yep.
By saying you must have an higher than the actual population in a given work environment representation of a certain group. You have to have half of your board as women. What if only 5% of the people who are in the population pool for that job, people who are interested in, what if only 5% are women? You have to have half of your group is black. Like, there are some people who put that high of a disparity. How many black people are there in America? It's like 13%, 12, 13%. So how do you fill that quota? Immediately by discriminating. And then you have to take in the fact that not all some jobs do favor blacks, whites, Indians, Chinese, whatever. But you have to immediately abandon meritocracy and put in this false sense. So by definition, it is avoiding meritocracy. By definition, it is discriminatory. By definition, it was meant as a good thing. We're saying it's meant
it's being executed
it
really
has caused
bad
harm. It has caused perverse consequences.
And it's not fair. So a friend of mine works someplace and she had a supervisor that was of a minority, and I'm not going to go into it, but he couldn't read or write. And he was the manager. And my first thought was, how unfair to that other people in that minority group that go to college to educate themselves and work hard. And this person was just given a job because of they're in a minority group.
Yeah.
That's not fair
It's not right.
It's not fair to the other people who put the effort forward.
And in the case of Boeing, for an example, it's anti-social, it's anti-societal. It causes aircraft to be dropping parts off of the plane in midair, killing people. This is not okay. Right. So that is what I think this is a part, and we're going to get to.
And by the
two
way,
men.
that's a Seattle company. If I could just emphasize that.
Sure. Exactly. It is a liberal leftist company.
Yes.
And we're seeing what that does. We're also going to look at a little bit later. If you haven't seen the clip this week, maybe your head was under a rock, or maybe you were very busy. I had a busy week myself. One of my best friend's mom just passed away. But I barely caught this clip. I was kind of out of it this week. You're aware that there is a social media clip of two men basically abusing a child because they had this child via surrogacy. We're going to get to that. This is what we are reacting to. And the judgment of God, I want to be very cautious here. I am not robbing God of his agency. I'm not saying that God does not enact judgment. Often, however, more often than I suspect we give credit for, the judgment of God, I'm saying in scare quotes, is the natural consequences of our own actions. It is something that occurs because we have stepped outside of the protection of God, outside of his grace, and he allows us the fruits that we have reached up surreptitiously and grabbed despite being told not to eat. It is an Edenic thing that has happened every single generation, every single year. And God raises up men and women to awaken his people. My question is are we being sensitive to the times? Are we aware of what's occurring? And can we look back on our history a little bit today and look at previous awakenings? So we're going to get into the first, second, and what I would call the second and a half awakening, the Jesus movement. And we're going to compare these. But before we do, let's look at where we are right now. Next cut, Mr. Producer, cut 2. Church attendance is on the rise for young people. Okay, according to this Barna study, Gen Z men, if you're on the video, you can see this. We have a colossal spike in attendance. It goes from below 20% to above 40. All right. In the last couple of years, Gen Z women, much less. Men are leading this trend. Uncharacteristic for great awakenings. Usually it's the women. Millennial men, Gen X men, boomer men, it is substantive. Even millennial, Gen X, and boomer women, we do see an increase. It is an increase across the board. Now, where some people are getting this wrong, this is traditional. Some people are saying it's because it's Catholic or Orthodox. What we're seeing, I didn't have time to pull up all of the studies, and I didn't want to get too nerdy with the graphs. It's groups that are basically shoving off the gay stuff. The weird sex stuff does not sell anymore. And if it is a traditional environment, young men specifically are flocking to it. So are women, but young men.
And if I could just tag onto that for just a moment, I think the reason is because they find it empty.
Mm-hmm.
It's not God's design.
Correct.
And they find it empty, and there's nothing there. This is going to sound weird to some that are listening, but please don't misunderstand my heart. When it comes to God and him creating man, he created man to worship. Man is going to worship no matter what. They will find someone, something to worship. But in the heart of that, what do they want? They want it to be fulfilling for them as well.
Yep.
And when they get into the sexual deviancy stuff, they find that it's empty. I've got to find it somewhere else. And you know what? Newsflash, marriage is sexually satisfying.
Yeah. Because that's the right fulfillment.
It's the right fulfillment.
Marriage is very fulfilling if it's done correctly. If you have a man and a woman who fulfill their role in the Lord, it's not free of battles. There's always battles. Charlie and I have been married almost 42 years. And believe me, there were a lot of battles on the way. But it is very fulfilling when you climb those mountains together
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you let God lead you and be the foundation of everything. I can say I am 60 years old and I don't have a problem with my age. I just don't. But I can say to you easily, and I've said this for many years, if I die today, I have been blessed more in my lifetime than many women that I know.
You have a full family.
I
godly
do.
family,
I
good
mean,
kids, good grandkids.
but our family is not perfect. We're like I told one of my grandchildren a couple months ago, family, you love them, but they're a beautiful mess. Family is a beautiful mess because you always have somebody who's not doing it right or causing problems or whatever. But that doesn't take away from the fulfillment.
Indeed.
Well said.
I want to catch up on some of the chat. So if you're one of our regular listeners on YouTube, Rumble, on the audio podcast, we got a couple 100,000 downloads. Thank you so much for the listenership anywhere podcasts are found. But you can listen live on PSB's channel on Rumble or Vaughn.live Sundays 1 through 3 Central Time, God's time zone. Just a quick note. This is from Panerific 20. The family structure, what happens when humanity goes extinct as men and women, or men with men, women with women, equal no procreation, no more human beings. That is the objective of Satan, I believe. Good Vibes, labor unions shifted far left in the 1930s and have stayed there. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And big business has always, people want to frame Republicans as big business. I don't think Republicanism has ever been for big business, but rather for business flourishing. And the Democrat Party has largely been for big business for a long, long time. I've heard the arguments. I don't buy it. I think there is a difference with the distinction that needs to be made there. So I totally agree with you. And then Melissa Perry's at John Arthur. Her family worked for Beach, and they're in Kansas City, and her family always hated the woke tards over in Seattle. So totally agree. Beach, a great American company. They make really good aircraft. They're called the piston jobs are called the Cadillacs of pistons. Yeah.
Did not know that.
They're the Doctor airplane. So there's an old joke. I'm going to digress just for a second. There's an old joke. Doctor gets up to heaven, talks to Pete. St. Pete is getting checked in, and he sees his Beechcraft Bonanza flying over, and then crash. The guy gets out, walks over, picks up a new Beechcraft Bonanza, takes off, flies it, crashes. Does it again. And while he's getting checked in, he walks up to St. Pete. Finally, he gets to the top of the line. He says, okay, cool. Thank you for being here. But who is that and what's going on? He goes, oh, that's just God. He's playing a doctor. Sorry. Anyway, so that's your Beechcraft joke.
The one thing that I find interesting, because Seattle did move their headquarters, or Seattle, sorry, Boeing moved one of their plants, and I'm just wondering if that eventually changes.
I think it has to. Just like we're seeing in the graph, and this is going to be cut number 3, Mr. Producer, 25-year trend being broken here. We're finally seeing it spike. And again, 45% increase over the last couple of years in men attending church over only 36% women.
This is amazing to me, this chart here.
Because it was always women.
Yeah.
It was always women who led these. And right now this is men.
Yeah. You know I should say, it's about time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
That men
should be leading.
Stepped up
Yep.
and started leading like this, because it's been too many years since probably probably the 40s, 50s, maybe even earlier, that men were stepping up and leading their families.
It needs to be that
to
way.
church. And it needs to be back that way.
When a man
fell
gets
off like 60s, 70s, because I remember in 60s, 70s, there wasn't a lot of.
And let me explain why that has not been the case. When a man gets saved, the whole family gets saved. When a woman gets saved, 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this the case? The church has been feminized. And there's nothing wrong with women having women's spaces. Men need men's spaces. That is, common sense is no longer common. And it's one of the things I hate about the right now. Someone comes out and says something very simple and obviously true, and then all of a sudden they're the star of the right. Guys, this is just biblical common sense. There's nothing special here. Men need their space.
Yeah, I want to say that I think men have been quiet for a long time because of the feminist movement and the guilt trip.
Correct.
Okay, and here I think we've come to a place where the woke agenda, I think people are just like, I don't care anymore.
We don't want it.
I don't care. I don't care about hurting your feelings. I don't care. This is how I feel. And I've heard that many times about we're not going to be polite anymore.
We're done.
We're done.
We're over it.
And I think that's where men have come. We're just done.
We bought the ticket. We want to get off the ride.
Yes.
We took
yes.
the ride. We no longer enjoy it.
Yeah.
We're off.
Mhm.
And so this is what happens, though. Every generation that reforms, they build up this, it's the good men
Mhm.
build good times build weak men bring bad times, bad men, bad times and bad men build good men, and the cycle starts over. It's in Judges, and everyone did what was right in their own eyes, and then they were conquered, and then they cried out to the Lord for help. Well, guess what? We're not that much different than Israel. Next cut, Mr. Producer. I want to talk about the First Great Awakening, compare and contrast here. So on the left of your screen, if you're watching on video, you see George Whitefield's revival. So that's an image of George Whitefield. What really drove the First Great Awakening was the idea of printed pamphlets being able to be spread fast. He was using new media, dare I say, new media, with convicting news of the gospel, convicting, just wonderfully written and thought through arguments for the scripture. And this bypassed parish halls. This was into the public square, where ultimately he could hold outdoor meetings. Compare that to today. New media allows apologists the opportunity to reach casual viewers in their home. Outdoor meetings and campus outreach has made it possible to reach even the unchurched leftist. That is the difference. And it's a very, very refined difference, but you can kind of see we're able to reach people who have either a misformed view of God or never heard of God. The First Great Awakening, most people had heard of God, and there's kind of a serious difference. Let's go ahead and read, next cut, Mr. Producer, some of George Whitefield's writings, because I think you're going to see a difference from the First Great Awakening to today. You're going to see a change in how when I was going through this, I was amazed at the sheer difference between then and now. Let's go back to then, Mr. Producer. So this is a quote. If you are going to walk with Christ, you are going to be opposed. In our days, to be a true Christian is really to become a scandal.
Wow. Nicely worded.
So timely, and very well worded. Another one, Mr. Producer. People want to recommend themselves to God by their sincerity. They think if we can do all we can, but we are sincere, Jesus Christ will have mercy on us. But pray, what is there in our sincerity to recommend us to God? Therefore, if you depend on your sincerity with your salvation, your sincerity will damn you.
You want to know who that sounds like?
Sounds like Paul.
Sounds like C.S. Lewis.
It just brilliant written.
Brilliant.
And so just keep in mind Whitefield versus today. And again, these are different people in different places, but this is, so I could have also gone for Jonathan Edwards, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, which, by the way,
good one,
is not what it sounds like. It's not a hateful diatribe. He's saying God in his mercy is reaching out to us, and it's actually a beautiful thing. But I wanted to just kind of pick a couple of quotes from several men and just kind of compare and contrast the ages. This next one, congregations are lifeless because dead men preach them.
Mm-hmm. This actually
is that not applicable today?
Wow.
Isn't it funny? Because I just listened to a documentary last night on George Whitefield.
Okay.
And it was funny. It's because they were listening to him, and they were going back to their churches and going, this is, we want more. And it caused a great deal of problems for the people who were complaining. Some of them were dismissed from their church. And so when you talk about the scandals, they went to George Whitefield, they were feeling fed the word. And if you're a Christian
Sorry. Yeah.
and you're not excited about God's word, or you're missing something.
Absolutely.
You're missing something.
Absolutely. And the other piece that I really despise about the seeker-friendly movement, is this idea that you have to water down the gospel.
Oh,
No.
This was the material in the First Great Awakening. Is this watered down in the slightest?
No,
Not a
it's
bit.
meat. It's delicious.
I agree. That is that delicious, thick.
There's so
steak.
much only milk today.
I agree.
and you know what really comes across strongly to me is you put Whitfield up there. What is it that Charlie Kirk did? He went and he shared the answer, but I'm not going to share it to please your ears.
No.
Yep. And,
I'm going to share it because it's truth.
and we'll get to Charlie Kirk, because I do want to discuss him, because
Yep.
him and there's a couple of others, we'll get there. I believe that they've had a profound impact. And I think that if you watch the tack of who has been reaching the masses, the tack and jibe, you'll see that there are different strategies for different times.
Yes.
I think there's also dilution that occurs. There's a reason for that. Next cut, Mr. Producer. The Second Great Awakening. Let's compare this to the potential Third Great Awakening. The era of Moody. Mothers and women predominantly led the charge for revival, bringing their families to church, prayer meetings, and ultimately modeled what became the Billy Graham Crusades. And really, I kind of attribute this as to one long chain all the way through the Crusades. Today, big difference is this. It's on logic, reasoning. The apologetic approach to evangelism is how we are only able to reach out to a largely secularized society. You have to be able to defend with reason, because a lot of these people, thank you, Mr. Producer, do not believe in absolute truth. I believe it was Good Vibes in the chat said the North Star of absolute truth is probably not in postmodernism. Agreed. That is 100% correct. It is missing. It is a problem. So I want to read a couple quotes from Moody. So this is next cut, Mr. Producer. He who kneels the most stands the best.
Amen.
Mhm.
Amen.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's good. Let's read a longer one from him. I firmly believe that the moment our hearts are emptied of selfishness and ambition and self-seeking and everything that is contrary to God's law, the Holy Spirit will come and fill every corner of our hearts. But if we are full of pride and conceit, ambition and self-seeking, pleasure and the world, there is no room for the Spirit of God. I also believe that many a man is praying to God to fill him when he is already with something else. He's already full with something else. Before we pray that God would fill us, I believe we ought to pray that he would empty us.
Amen.
There must be an emptying before there can be a filling. And when the heart is turned upside down and everything that is contrary to God is turned out, then the Spirit will come. That's missing from most of today's preachers.
That is so spot on.
That is missing, because the gospel is Jesus died to his self needs, and you cannot call Christ fulfilling his own desires selfish, because they are the correct designs and desires. He died to his right. He laid aside. He thought it not robbery to be equal with God, something to be
equal with
attained.
God.
He didn't think that he had to be equal with the Father. He laid that down. I believe that's Philippians 2,
Yeah.
2:6.
As a matter of fact, I'll get it.
So he laid that down. That is something that we must do. And this is something that I really think is grossly missing from our day-to-day life. A lot of our pastors are ultimately, to borrow from Whitfield, the sermons are dead because the preachers are so. Right?
Mhm.
That's really where we are. Next cut, Mr. Producer. Another one from Dwight L. Moody. What we need as Christians is to be able to feed ourselves. How many there are who sit helpless and listless with open mouths, hungry for spiritual things, and the minister has to try to feed them, while the Bible is a feast prepared into which they never venture.
Absolutely.
So there's a pastor here in Houston that he's part of a mega church, and I have nothing against him per se, but he said this. I'm not in this church for a reason. He said, a lot of you come to me and say, preacher, I'm filled now that I've heard your word. I'm so glad that you were able to preach. I was spiritually dry. And he says it from the pulpit. He says, a lot of you tell me this, and I'm very confused. You sound like you just came and you had food at the church and you hadn't eaten all week. If you had fed yourself over the week, you would be naturally full. You'd still need some imparting of the Spirit. However, if you are not feeding yourself, of course you are going to be hungry on Sunday. Why don't you start to actually read your Bible? Why don't you actually take in some of the word? That's an important word. That's something that's largely missing from our
And those are tough
discourse as
words to
Christians.
deliver, because if a pastor becomes focused on numbers in
That's
his
a-
membership,
yes.
that's a killer. If you're talking to a modern day marketer, they're going to say, "Don't you dare say that."
Correct.
Don't you dare say that.
Correct.
So I want to go back to that,
So
that section of verses.
Second Philippians 6, I
It's
believe?
Philippians 2, 4 through, yeah.
Philippians 2.
I'll find it.
Sorry, Philippians 2. Second
Um,
Philippians. I did it.
It's-
I did
that's
the thing.
That's a
I
new
did the
book.
thing.
Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who, being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. And being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross.
Mm. We are called to be like that. And again, Christianity is not rainbows, lollipops, and unicorns. It is a death sentence in most countries in the world. And we are very, very privileged to live here in America, but a lot of other countries, it is a death sentence. It is supposed to be a death sentence for yourself, for your selfish nature, and you're supposed to be living as a new creation in Christ, this new being who's both God and man only through the goodness of God, through the goodness of and the gift of his Son. You're wearing the robes of the righteousness of Christ. That new creation is supposed to be what lives when you put your own heart to death. That's supposed to be how it is. We kind of lost the sauce, and I think that's why a lot of folks despise Christianity, because we've lost the importance of that message. Now, this is I hesitated to put this in here because I want to be cautious, but I do want to go ahead and look at the Jesus movement. Next cut, Mr. Producer. Let's compare this potential third great awakening to the Jesus movement. This is the rise of the seeker-friendly church. And again, Chuck Smith in the 70s really de-emphasized logic, reason, and liturgy and orthodoxy in an attempt to win the hippie generation. I understand why that's the case. The 2026 influx is largely away from the seeker-friendly churches.
Mm-hmm.
And you see a large influx into the Catholic and Orthodox, but you also see a lot into non-mainline Christian denominations, some Pentecostal denominations as well as Orthodox and Catholics. People are looking for traditional values and stability. They are not looking for the church to bend itself over. Thank you, Mr. Producer. I don't want to be hard on Chuck Smith. My dad was actually part of the Jesus movement and part of the Calvary Chapel movement. There is a good thing that happened there. What I think we failed to do is to disciple people in righteousness and doctrine. And everyone that I've heard that's come out of the Calvary Chapel movement, the reason they're out is because they were looking for something deeper. There are good people at Calvary Chapel. They are doing, some of them are really, really doing fantastic work. What's his name? Jack
Hibbs.
Jack Hibbs. Some of these guys are doing wonderful work. I am not attacking them in the slightest. I am saying this, however, there are a lot of Calvary Chapel churches that are weak on the doctrine.
You know, it's interesting
Excellent.
because before this week, I sent Charlie. I listen to Dutch Sheets every morning. He does. He prays over the nation. I just love him. I followed him for years, and I sent Charlie one of his morning.
Devotionals.
Yeah, and this is what he was talking about. The Jesus movement that happened, we didn't disciple them.
We didn't actually.
And look what happened.
Mm-hmm.
It watered down, and now there's a whole generation that is saying, "Hey, look, I do not see the fruit.
Uh-huh.
I see my parents that were told, you can be mollified here, you can be pacified here, you can be allowed to be who you are, and we're not going to try to change you."
Yeah.
Ooh.
Man, that really sucks. And I'm not putting that on Calvary Chapel's leadership. I think that happened at a lot of places.
Yes.
And you get lost in these large churches and you never get held accountable.
The whole purpose of going to church is to be what? First and foremost, as Christians, we are to be equipped.
To serve.
To serve.
Correct.
It's if you think that you're just going to church to take in, you're just dead weight. Okay? I'm so sick and tired of these people that show up at Sunday and think, feed me, feed me, feed me. I don't have to do anything. I'm at church to be encouraged, but I'm supposed to give out. Otherwise, you're just like the Dead Sea.
I was telling you about my family's church. Some of my family's up in Arkansas, and the guy at First Baptist of Greenwood. This guy goes and he says, "Hey, some of you people don't realize I am the coach. You guys are the players. You come and you learn from me, and then you go play in the field. You're expecting the coach to go out on the field
and play." Yeah.
The church is a training institute and hospital for sinners and people who are brought in by the Lord. Like, this is a place for you to learn, for you to be held accountable. And then you're supposed to go out. You say, we hire a preacher for that. No, you don't. I keep the lights on here. I turn things on. The Sunday service goes well. And hopefully you hear God's word. And then you're supposed to transform you. And part of that's on me, but most of it's on you.
Absolutely.
Like, if you're not doing the work of God, then what's the deal? And he says, half of you are divorced. I know you people. Half of you are divorced. And you guys come to me and you want to, and you want me to validate you. The truth is, you need to be validated by Jesus Christ. And by doing that, or to do that, you have to submit to the cross.
Yep.
If you don't find a preacher who talks like that,
find another one.
Find the next one. Go to the next church. Go until you find one who's actually teaching the Bible, who's willing to say, hey, I'm willing to lose people because the gospel is offensive. And we need to stop this with the seeker-friendly movement. I like Chuck Smith. I am not against Chuck Smith. I'm just saying, if you don't disciple these people, it gets worse. So I actually want to hear a little bit from Chuck Smith here. We're going to go and put up next quote, Mr. Producer. This is from Chuck Smith. "I have come to the conclusion that it's more important that I have the right attitude than I have the right answers. If my answers are wrong, God can change them in a moment by the revelation of his truth, but oftentimes it takes a whole lifetime to change an attitude. Better that we have the right attitude and the wrong answers, and the right answers and the wrong attitude." I appreciate the sentiment, and I appreciate what he's saying. You want to be able to you want to be submissive to God, is what he means. The problem is, if you're not careful and you don't bring a good clarification of what you mean, people can walk away with a weak idea and understanding. Your answers are important.
And a wrong answer can destroy somebody.
A wrong answer can be misleading.
Not that not everybody can have the right answer, but the Bible does say, study to show thyself approved.
That's it.
The word says that we are to be ready to give
an answer. Yeah.
And that means this is huge, because we've just talked about this. How many people are coming to church on Sunday, but they're not picking up a Bible or anything during the week? That's a major, major, major problem, because you're of no use.
Correct. You're a dead
You are a dead weight.
tree. You're dead.
Well-
You're dead. You're a dead tree. You're not producing fruit. Producing fruit, by the way, is somewhat in your life, but really it also means, are you bringing forward other Christians? Are you involved in watering, planting, tilling? God willing, reaping. God willing, you're there. You know, I've had the privilege of praying many prayers with people for salvation. Praise God. But are you being used by God in the planting, the tilling? You know, our friend who was on the podcast not too long ago, Eric Hernandez, says planting seeds, pulling weeds. Are
Yes.
you involved in that every day?
Mm.
Are you involved in that every day? That's a question I hope, if you take nothing else from this 2-hour podcast, are you planting seeds and pulling weeds every day, using words when necessary?
And we have a friend who does a lot of homesteading and gardening, and I know she said something about her garden, and she can't leave for 2 weeks in the summertime. She said, "Are you kidding? The weeds would take over the whole garden." She goes out
Correct.
every morning because faithfully going out every day means less work for you in the long run.
Indeed. Indeed. And that is something that I think the church is way, way overlooked. So one more from Chuck Smith, Mr. Producer, if you would, please. The greatest service you can provide to the people in your care is to make the Bible accessible to them. This is one more thing. Again,
I'd go a step deeper.
I'd go one step further and say, make it accessible to them and bring them along in good
Teach them.
doctrine. Because if you just make the Bible accessible, you have to also do some instruction, some training. You have to put in.
What about
people.
what about the Ethiopian eunuch? What's going on there?
You're talking about Acts 4.
Yeah. What are you reading? Do you know what you're reading? How can I know unless somebody tells me?
And that's it.
I think, though,
The Bible can defend itself. The question is are we being as effective as we should be?
well, what comes to my mind right now when you talk about eating is when Jesus fed the 5,000, and then they came back, and he said, "You're only here for the food," but when it came time for service,
No. I'm going to push back hard on that. When they came back that second time, they wanted to eat.
Mhm.
And Jesus was saying, I gave you physical the first day. I can take care of you. Here's what's done day 2,
Mhm.
the spiritual. Oh,
yeah,
you didn't want the spiritual. You just wanted the physical.
Just wanted to be fed.
And that is a beautiful illustration right there of what's going on in some of our churches
Yes.
today. People are coming for the food, but they don't want the food that the pastor's really putting on the table.
And we need to start holding people accountable.
Hold them
and saying,
accountable.
if you're here, and this is something that's been hard for me. I've had to have that conversation with people of, I've told you what you need to do. You asked me what my opinion was. I didn't give you my opinion. I pointed you to the word.
Yeah.
You need to go ahead and take that, the word, read it, and then between you and God, make your decision. And if you want me to mollify you and just coddle you until kingdom come, while you continue to make the same decision that you're coming to me and asking me, how do I get out of the situation? You can leave. And that's a hard thing to say, but people need to know truth is truth. And if you don't want it, there comes a time where you've just got to make a decision.
yeah.
Are you going to dwell in truth or not? Speaking of, let's talk about some folks who are pervasive today, some people who've had an effect today. Next cut, Mr. Producer. Obviously, Charlie Kirk, really, really great speaker for ultimately conservatism, but in doing so, he talked about the word somewhat. The greatest minds in history have been mesmerized by the scriptures. Isaac Newton, Thomas Aquinas. Isaac Newton wrote more about biblical prophecy than even physics. And so there's something about the scriptures that are intellectual, that does push your limits. And that's what I think is so beautiful about our faith, is that it can be accessible to everyone, but also infinitely nourishing in exploration. That is well put.
Yep.
Yes, we want it accessible, but we also want to point people towards the more nourishment part. Another great orator of today, Frank Turek, says this: what would the effect on society be if everyone lived faithfully in natural marriage? It would result in a dramatic reduction in crime, welfare, abortion, and child abuse. On the other hand, what would be the effects on society if everyone lived faithfully in same-sex marriage? It would be the end of society and the human race itself. While universal homosexuality, of course, would not occur, the two questions should help us realize that the two types of relationships can never be equated because they are not equally beneficial. By the way, chat, we were going to get to that. That is absolutely correct.
Yep.
And again, Turek does I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. He does a lot of other really good stuff. One more from today's revival. And that's actually two more. And this is Mike Winger. If you're not familiar with Mike Winger,
Love Mike Winger.
great expositor on the word. Accept God's grace for your past failures, but don't abuse his grace by planning future ones.
Amen.
One more from him. You will learn to think biblically about everything so you can deal with false teaching. Know what Scripture says about specific issues. Prove Christianity is true. Go deep into theology. Do you see the difference between Mike Winger and Whitfield? What's the difference? Two things. Simplification, which I actually mourn. The other is the audience. The audience has become less Christian.
Yep.
Two causes for that. The lie that the church can coexist with secular humanism in a secular state is not what the founding fathers laid out. That is not what God calls us to do. That is not who we're meant to be. We are meant to evangelize. I'm not talking about putting people to the sword if they don't agree. That's not what I'm saying. However, you can and do, by definition, legislate morality. I'm a recovering libertarian. I have said you cannot legislate morality. I recant. That is wrong. By definition.
All right, we had a pastor who said every law put on the books reflects somebody's morality.
By definition, you legislate morality. I can't believe I was dumb enough to say that.
I heard this week, which is interesting. Christians who do not participate in politics. I heard this from a preacher this week. Politics, you might not interfere in politics. You don't want to get involved, but politics will get involved with you.
Correct. Well, I said this to a friend of ours. A friend of ours said, I don't like getting into politics. It's icky. And I said, public sanitation
is
icky. But if someone doesn't take care of it, we'll all be swimming in it.
You know, I've had talked to Christians and try to talk to them more about faith and politics, and they'll go, no, I don't talk about religion and politics. I don't get into that. All I do is I when I come to church to do with religion, I come to church and I do with it, and then when I leave, I don't talk to people about it, and I don't talk politics to other people either, because it gets, you can get into arguments and have this. And I said, well, that's been going on for thousands of years, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you supposed to not talk about at the dinner table?
Come on.
Yeah.
That's
religion and
everyday
politics.
conversation.
But that's the problem is that we're supposed to lead. And I think the secularist movement is ultimately effeminate, and the Marxist movement is ultimately effeminate. Look at Karl Marx. He was an effeminate man. And you look at everyone who pushed eugenics, everyone who pushed feminism, everyone who has pushed the Marxist state, they're all effeminate. What I mean by that is not feminine, but they feminize everything around them. And it says in the word, the effeminate will not inherit the kingdom of God. Those who wish to rob the masculine, make everything feminine, and live in the spirit of Jezebel or the effeminate man.
Amen.
That is something that we have to push back on, and it has crept into our churches. So I do think that is why we are seeing, next slide, Mr. Producer, that is why we are seeing this graph. So we are seeing an increase. And I think that the bad times that we're living in, next cut, Mr. Producer, have actually produced this chart. 26% of Gen Z with no faith, I repeat, with no faith, say that they have prayed within the previous 7 days. Thank you, Mr. Producer. Let me reiterate that. Of Gen Zers, those who say they are a religious nun, not the women with the gown, but rather not affiliated, 26% of Gen Z nuns are saying that they've prayed in this last week.
That's interesting.
There is a hunger
Yes.
for spirituality. Also, astrology TikTok, witchcraft TikTok, those have all exploded in the past couple of years.
They're searching.
They're searching. They're looking. Who needs to have the answers?
We better.
And who better not be seeker friendly to the witchcraft talk? We better not. We better actually have a orthodox, I'm not necessarily speaking about the denomination, a correct doctrine that is a tried and true biblical doctrine.
Yes.
Right? Ready for these people who are curious, because they're tired of this. They are tired of the world. If you have not seen this next clip that Mr. Producer is about to put up, this is ugly. If you have children in the room, you may or may not want to excuse them. This is disturbing to me because this is a form of child abuse, and it is egregious. There's nothing sexual, there's nothing violent, but I do believe that this is a form of mental and spiritual abuse. Go ahead and put this up, Mr. Producer.
Hey.
These are a gay couple.
Who do you want, Dada or Pop? No, Mama. Do you want Dada or Pop? Who do you want, Dada or Pop? No. Do you want Dada? You want Pop? No way, Jose. I think. Oh, there is no Mama. I'm so sorry. You have Dada. You have Pop. Two choices. No Mama. No. No, Mama. Dada or Pop? No.
To these two men, I would say comical. I would say burn in hell. The problem is, I think they're well on their way. This child was produced by surrogacy. Who in here understands what surrogacy does? Like what would, Mr. Producer, do you know what surrogacy does? You pay for the process of in vitro fertilization.
Yes.
And that is put into a woman. By the way, IVF, if you realize that there are sometimes dozens of children discarded at the end of IVF, if you are pro-life, I'm just going to say, children who are born of IVF are a good thing. The means of producing those children can be evil. And I would argue that is a bad means. We should stop doing IVF because you are aborting.
And we're not anti-women having
not anti-women. The child is a good thing.
Yes.
Children are a gift from the Lord. The child is a good thing. Don't misunderstand me. But
the method.
But killing 6 more children or 10 or 30 in some cases more children is a bad thing. This is coming from someone who is the only one who survived out of his family's attempt to have a large family. They thought about IVF. They looked into it and said, ooh, no. So there's a lot of sorrow with infertility. Okay. There's a lot of sorrow with that. Noted.
Yep.
But surrogacy goes one further, where you rent a woman's womb for this process. And then the child is delivered on payment.
Mm-hmm.
You are commodifying the woman's womb and the child's life. And so this baby, let me ask you a question. Would everyone in here, how would you feel if we heard that child's mom died in a car wreck and that's why he's crying for his mama, but he can't see her? Would that be tragic?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Why is that tragic? Because the baby's growing up without his
Mother.
mother. What is different from these men cutting this child off from his mother by going into an arrangement? Not forget that the woman dies or doesn't. Let's talk about the tragedy specifically for the infant. This infant will be raised. He will be raised with two deviant men. Maybe they're good men, right? Outside of their sexual deviancy, maybe they are good men. Let's play the game. Maybe they are good men. Who is living his life without his mama? I'm not talking about the men even right now. I'm not even talking about the efficacy of homosexuality. I'm talking about the baby who you brought into this and you took away his mother.
You did that on purpose.
On purpose, intentionally. She might, for that child's developmental years, you might as well have killed his mom. Not talking about the moral person-to-person argument, but as far as what has harmed that child, you have robbed that child of his mama. By the way, then you're mocking him.
And you know, what's interesting is that even though the baby is not around, hasn't been taught to talk, the child knows it has a mother. I mean, a child knows it has a mother when they come out. They're not
connected.
Just a male.
They're connected to their mom.
Exactly.
And by the way, for the first 7 years of development, that is the most important relationship. By the way.
Exactly.
Not that the man's not important. The man's critical in that time. But it flips. The one who has a significant input on the final result of the child is now from 8 on is the dad. So both are necessary. Both are critical.
Very.
Robbing that child of his mom is a crime. Sorry. Even if it's not on the books, it is a crime.
Actually, there is a movement that is starting, and it's starting by a woman who was raised in a home with her mother and father divorced, and then her mother married another woman. And she has a good relationship with both women, but she has started a movement, and it's her thing is it's not fair to the child to bring a child into a home that does not have a mother or a father.
It is wrong.
That is not fair to a child. And let me just go a little bit further for people who are married as husband and wife. If you are not providing a good home, you are the husband and she is the wife, but you are not providing a good, sound, secure home for your child, that's not fair for the child either.
Correct. So this whole podcast isn't necessarily on surrogacy per se, but I do want to say this is part of the reason is we have accepted dysfunction as the norm. Next cut, Mr. Producer. If you missed this story, this is why I'm generally against surrogacy. Generally, I want to say that there might be opportunities, but generally I'm against it because it leads to stuff like this. This week, surrogate mother was ordered by the court to abort the child because the child was missing 2 fingers. And the family that had ordered the baby, the mail order baby, was missing 2 fingers, so they returned the product. Down third trimester, by the way. This is a child in the third trimester.
This is sick.
And this was a surrogate mother?
Correct. And she wanted to keep the baby. Thank you, Mr. Producer. She wanted to keep the baby, and she wanted to raise it herself. However, she was not allowed to. Under court order, she was told she had to.
What country was this?
I believe.
Go ahead. Tell me it's Canada.
No, I don't think so. I believe it was the Czech Republic. But all of that to say, it was a late night last night. All of that to say, there are certain lines that I think we need to reevaluate, not because one family has had success or one family has done good or bad. We need to start rethinking these boundaries because it was Chesterton, I believe, who said, no man tears down a fence without first asking why it was erected. You need to start thinking about why God designed certain things certain ways before we start violating those. Adoption is an option, okay? Adoption is an option. IVF, by default, produces a child. Good thing. The 5, 10, some cases 30 children who are flushed down the toilet were also good things that were ended in some IVFs. I have family members who've had IVF. Do I come to them and mistreat? Absolutely not. I do not. I understand. However, we have to start saying flushing the extra children down the toilet or putting them in the freezer, which eventually they will someday. God forbid. What happens if they're still in the freezer 100 years from now and now they're considered scientific property?
Yep.
Do you understand the moral ramifications of taking this out of God's hands? As someone who has lived in a family with a lot of sorrow over not having kids due to infertility, I'm not a woman, noted, but I lived through that. I watched my mom go through this. Okay, it was a hard thing. It's not worth it. We need to reconsider. We need to reconsider. I'm not bringing condemnation on people who didn't know. I'm not saying that we need to go track people down. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we need to reconsider if we as a society can allow this to occur. This is what the culture is reacting against. We're reacting against third trimester abortion because the baby's missing a couple fingers. This is eugenics. This is on the road to that.
Also, if the surrogate parents don't want a child because it's missing 2 fingers, nobody should be giving those people a child, period, because it's conditional. Those are not people who are excited about a baby. I'll take this baby and love it for no matter what.
That is literally, and I hesitate to even say this, that is fast food order mentality.
And they're not going to be good parents. It'll be a horrible life for that child.
And we are literally commodifying human life and sex.
And it's wrong.
And the product of sex. We've done it with a number of other ways with OnlyFans, but now we're also commodifying the product.
Yes.
The natural product of
commodifying babies. That's exactly putting them on the market.
It is human trade. And I understand a child is a good thing. There are bad ways of procuring a good thing. That is what sin is by definition. Going about pursuing a good thing in a bad way. By definition, that is what sin ultimately always is.
That really comes back around to what Chuck Smith said in that one quote. And I'm not trying to hammer him, but the issue of attitude and answers, that's the crux of it.
Yeah.
That's not an answer. And your attitude toward it doesn't matter either. The answer is critical, but the methods by which it happens, the morality by which it happens is critical.
So this is part of why, and I bring up these studies because they're relevant. This is where a lot of young men who are convinced of the pro-life argument that life does begin at conception, that human life has innate intrinsic value because of a supernatural image-bearing context that human life has. We're seeing that. We're convinced of that. Young men are now seeing that, and then they look and they see that, and they say, which denominations forbid surrogacy? Interesting. Which denominations condemn IVF? Interesting. Which denominations are supportive of abortion? Maybe I don't want to be involved in that one. That is why it's going in that direction. And that's why you see, once we start to lay out some good ground rules and we start to play by them, it's interesting. Society tends to heal. If we continue to go off the rails, if we continue to allow one more thing, I want to be careful. I'm not saying this to condemn anything that has happened to this point, but we do need to reconsider some of these boundaries. We need to redraw them. So, moving on to a lighter note. History of the United States. We've had 250 years here in the U.S.
Yes, we have.
So we're in for some Nikki Knows Facts.
Yes, we are ready for moving on to 18. Oh, you got it right. 1866.
Golf clap. I need everybody in chat. You need to put the applause icon in there. The emoji. Please do.
For Charlie. He's had a hard time doing
this has been awful for me.
There you go. We appreciate that.
Oh my gosh.
So we have traveled from the start of the United States. We have gone through a couple wars. We've gone through some depressions. We've gone through the slavery issue, and we've just finished up the Civil War. And now we move into what's called the Reconstruction era. And I want you to think about that. I don't know if you realize it, but if you ever studied the Civil War, the South was pretty much destroyed. A lot of it, when Sherman went through, he burned a lot of it. And so now you have to rebuild the South. But not only are you rebuilding, you have a transition going on. You have slaves. You can, put up that one. You have slaves that are now free men. And now they've got to become self-sufficient. There's going to have to be an education program. There's going to have to be an employment. And you have a South that is very hostile and resistant. So what the government does during this time is they move federal troops into the South. Now, all of you know and have heard of the Ku Klux Klan, and that started very shortly after the Civil War, and it was started by former Confederate soldiers. And their idea was to resist what the North had done by freeing the slaves. And this defiance was going to be done through violence. Violence against blacks, violence against office holders, violence against white people who were allies with the former slaves. Their goal was to undermine this Republican state government and try to get Democrats back into control of the South. And we move on from the Reconstruction to 1868, the next one there, the 14th Amendment. Now, the war ended in 1865, but this 14th Amendment didn't come to pass until 1868. This guaranteed citizenship and equal protection under the law for everybody. Remember, in 1847, Dred Scott went to the Supreme Court, and they said, "You're not a citizen." And the Supreme Court also said it's illegal for Congress to ban slavery. Well, guess what? This is 11 years later, slavery is no longer, and now every black person in America is considered a citizenship, and it was required for them to have due process under the law. This is one of what we call our most important constitutional amendments. We all appreciate the 14th Amendment. Let's move on to 1869. The next one. Ulysses S. Grant becomes the president. Now, we know that Ulysses S. Grant was a great general during the Civil War. That's mainly what he is remembered for. Do you know he also got a lot of criticism during the war? He was really a bulldog. In some of his battles, many Union soldiers died, and he got a lot of criticism for it. And a lot of people say that if Ulysses S. Grant had been the general at the beginning of the Civil War, it would not have lasted that long. But he is not remembered very much for being president. He did become president in 1869, but his administration was rocked with scandal after scandal. However, he is still respected as a general who preserved the Union.
I come back to violence and deterrence.
Yep.
That's what goes through my mind. Violence and deterrence.
And he did. And he also oversaw the Reconstruction period in the South. If you notice on that, there was the Transcontinental Railroad was completed in 1869.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have the ability to go from the East Coast to the West Coast. Remember when we talked about the wagon trains, how it would take months to travel, sometimes 3 months, sometimes 6 months? Now you're talking about traveling in a few days. Well,
you would no longer die from dysentery.
Yeah, starvation.
Someone just really, like, no one grabbed the ball on that one. We could have had Terry Crews, punching someone. You died from dysentery.
Oh,
anyway, so that all ended with 1869.
Miss Nikki, continue.
Please.
Yes. Well, that you have the
Sounds like a dad joke or something.
yes, it was. Of course, you're going to have a lot more migration going west, and you're going to increase in trade because now you can move product and you can increase in business. However, the more people went west, the more they crept onto the native lands and the harder it got for the native people. I just want to say a small note right here. I know there are people that say, oh, we're on stolen land, we're on stolen land. I just want you to realize something. If America did not move west, another country would have come in and taken that land. That's just reality. The world was growing and men were coming, and look how fast America has populated in 250 years. It's amazing. It's it's incredible. The next one, don't put the thing up yet. I want to know if anybody understands this or can guess. This woman was arrested in 1872. She tried to vote. She was arrested, she was convicted, and she was fined. She refused to pay the fine, and no further action was taken against her. Does anybody know who that would be?
Go, Susie.
Yeah, you know, because you knew the thing. All right, put her up there. Susan B. Anthony. She is known for the women's suffrage movement. She wanted equal rights and the women to be able to vote. She started this movement, and this is in the 1870s. However, it was 50 years later before the 19th Amendment was ratified, which allowed women to vote. That's a long time.
And for those that like to travel and they like to see points of interest, you can go up to the Finger Lakes area, Seneca, and you can see some of the historical stuff associated with
We've been there.
that movement. Yeah.
We've been there.
It's a beautiful area.
Well,
A lot of history there.
This is Rochester, New York, so we lived close to there. So.
South of there, yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to the next one. In 1871, the Great Chicago Fire. Now, it was a horrible disaster, one of the most famous disasters in U.S. history. A fire started in a barn, and they had dry climate at that time and strong winds, and the fire spread quickly. It began on October 8th, and it burned until October 10th. It destroyed 17,000 structures and burned 3.3 square miles. That's a lot.
I think we could probably use another Chicago fire.
Well, actually, the Chicago Fire was somewhat responsible for one of the greatest hymns of all time.
Which one was that?
It Is Well With My Soul.
Oh,
Because
I thought that was a different
because he lost everything in the Chicago Fire. He sent his wife and his
daughter.
daughters
That's right.
across the ocean.
Yeah.
And he was going to go meet them later.
And
And
that,
on that ocean travel, because he had lost everything, he sent them back to Europe. They were washed overboard.
yeah.
And when he was making that trip to comfort his wife, he passed a spot. He was able to write "It Is Well With My Soul."
It is right. And we all cherish that song today. An estimated 300 people died in this fire. 100,000 people were left homeless. The fire destroyed the north side and the downtown Chicago. But however, the south side and the west side remained undamaged. And I want you to think about something. The city rebuilt, and it came back, what they say, stronger and larger than it was before. And I don't think there was any government handouts. So people did suffer, but sometimes if you let people just work it out,
If you let them have more of their own money, they can actually fix things the way they want to.
Yeah.
And local businesses can actually chip in.
yes.
Ooh, go figure.
However, it did the fire. You know, when you have something like this, you sit back and go, okay, we don't want this to ever happen again. So this started people to think about fire safety and how we can make buildings safer and what can we do in that situation. So that's a good thing.
Coding laws.
Well, they can go too far. We can
Yeah.
go too far on that. But all right, let's move on to number 7. Sitting Boo.
Sitting Boo.
Sitting Bull.
You shouldn't have read that so fast.
Sitting Butt.
Bull and the Great Sioux War. You know, we talked about people migrating west. Well, the Indians were forced onto reservations. And there was a treaty established in 1868 called the Laramie Treaty. And that was the Great Sioux Reservation. Now, they had some sacred land, which was the Black Hills.
You know, they stole their land.
Continue, please.
So,
Timing.
and the Black Hills, now, when Indians have sacred land, it's because something with their history. And that was part of part of the reservation. However, gold was discovered in the Black Hills. And guess what? Men started migrating to get the gold, and the government ignored the treaty. So what do you think happened?
Typical.
War.
The Indians became very hostile, and they started attacking wagon trains, and they started resisting. Sitting Bull was one of these leaders. So what they did is, you ever heard of Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer?
Who?
From the regular army?
Custard mustard.
Mm-hmm. He was sent there to fight this Indian resistance. You ever heard of a place called the Battle of Little Bighorn?
Yep.
Well, Custer and his troops were defeated by the Lakota and Cheyenne warriors. This is also known as Custer's Last Stand. George Armstrong Custer and every soldier of 5 companies he led were killed that day by these Indians. This shocked the nation. You know, Charlie and I were at Little Bighorn.
It's quite a place.
It is, but you know, it's a hill. Of course, we were in.
It's kind of a bowl. It's almost a bowl.
Yeah, and we went to the museum too. Of course,
Yes.
you know, we love history. You know that. But anyway, it shocked the nation, and it led to harsher military campaigns afterwards. I think you've probably read some of those stories. They're horrible.
Correct.
There was, on the reservations, what they had was Indian Agency Police, and these were Indians that they made them police officers, and they enforced the law on the reservations. They were sent to get Sitting Bull. And there was 40 of them, and they went to his cabin, and of course, Sitting Bull had some family and friends in the area. Anyway, somebody fired a shot. It wasn't Sitting Bull, but 2 of the Indian Agency police shot Sitting Bull. One shot him in the head, and the other one shot him in the chest. He wasn't the one that fired the shot, but that's how he ended up dying. But there you know about Sitting Bull. All right, let's go on to 1877. The next one, yeah. I'm sorry, there was 2 there. This is called the Compromise of 1877 and the End of Reconstruction. Now, I'm going to tell you something. This bothers me. The compromise was a formal agreement. It settled a dispute from the 1876 presidential election. Rutherford B. Hayes was a Republican, but they disputed whether he actually won the election, but they made a compromise. We'll give you the presidency, and you end Reconstruction and pull the troops out. And he did. You know, I wonder if he stood firm and say, no, I won. I wonder if things would have changed, or if it would have been different. Because what happened in the compromise is the South established what is known as Jim Crow laws, enforcing racial segregation. It also marked the beginning of a long period of Southern white Democratic control. So, you want reparations? Go to the Democratic Party. They're the ones that caused a lot of your heartache. Go to them. Civil rights were really kind of, I want to say, delayed a little bit in the South when they established these Jim Crow laws, and because it really promoted a lot of unfair things for Black people. And here we just had the 14th Amendment, and now you in the South, I mean, there were restaurants you couldn't go to. You couldn't drink out of the same water fountain as a white person. It's just wrong.
So
overall wrong.
The election of 1877 was where we had 3 different, completely separate state slates of electors sent. So the Democrats and the Republicans both sent a set of electors to D.C. This is what Ted Cruz was speaking about when he was interrupted on January 6th of 2020.
Ah.
And how they fixed this was 10 people from the judiciary, 10 from the Senate, and 10 from Congress were sent to delegate, and that's how they came to this agreement. And so I specifically wanted to pull that up because this is the election that we had. And by the way, Oregon, there was a single elector who was disputed. So it's a total of 4 states. So it was 4 different states sent or had a dispute over which electors were actually the correct ones for the Electoral College.
You know, one of the things we're doing here in Texas is that Cornyn is fighting for his seat. And a lot of Republicans feel like he is what they call a rhino. That
Yep.
he's a soft,
He
a
is
soft politician.
big time.
And we've had some other Republicans lose their seats
Mhm.
because people are tired of the conservative movement. We send people to Congress and to the government, and they won't promote conservative issues. They'll compromise. They
Yep.
compromise too much. And that's what this reminded me of is
Yes.
Mhm.
We've allowed a lot of shenanigans in the pursuit of specific goals.
Yep.
Mhm.
And again, we need to start to begin with the end in mind.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So that's a sad part there, but we're going to end on a good note. So we're going to go. I brought my little cell phone with me today because we're going to talk about Alexander Graham Bell and Thomas Edison and the age of invention.
Oh,
Yes. So in 1876 was the invention of the telephone, which we all have in our hands today. We carry them around with us. I'm not sure that he thought it would go this far as what it does, but it has, and it revolutionized communication. You can take this little cell phone and you can call across the world,
you
and
know,
just like that.
I heard that these cell phones nowadays have more technology in them than when the first Apollo mission
Yes,
went to the moon.
that's scary, but you're right.
Isn't that scary?
That's frightening.
Just a little thing you hold in your hand has more technology than when they first went to the moon.
It is. It is. It is.
Wild progression.
There we go. We're going to move on to
Something else.
1877 is Thomas Edison.
But Steve, isn't space fake and gay? I'm kidding. Continue.
Thomas Edison invented the phonograph. It was the first sound recording and playback device, which, by the way, we have right here in our little phones. And in 1879, he demonstrated the light bulb, the successful, because remember, he practiced making a light bulb 2,000 times before he succeeded.
Yep.
And this was in 1879, and it led to widespread use by 1882, which, by the way, we all have a flashlight in here. We'll call it, might not be a light bulb, but we've moved on. So technology changes the world, and this is where we are in the late 1800s. And of course, factories were created all over the Northeast, and U.S. is on its way to becoming an industrial power. There we are. 1866 to 1885.
1900s are going to be very interesting.
It's
Oh,
coming up.
yes.
It's going to be quite the adventure.
Sure.
So join us on that. And now I believe we're ready for some shenanigans.
I can't go shoot me a buffalo.
Nope. Nope.
Stay out of my garbage can. I'll keep it to myself.
All right.
Yep.
Let's go ahead. Next cut, Mr. Producer.
What we're going to start off with is beauty in the woods. Now, what we're going to talk about is the things that you can find when you are on a walk going in the woods, the different things that you can find. Now, we got some beauty. Go back to that one picture there. Now, this is a giant puffball. You've seen these little puff balls that you find, and they're about 2 inches in diameter. Now, this dude, when I was out on my deer lease earlier in the week, this thing here is about 10 inches tall and about 12 inches around. I'm talking like this big around and about this tall.
I don't think I've ever
It
seen
is the huge, and there was about 5 of them around.
Oh, wow.
So what do you do with those?
No.
Don't do anything with them.
They're just
They
giant
just,
puffballs.
it's like
likes
a, It's just a puffball.
So
It's
let me
kind
tell
of
you
like a
why-
mushroom.
Okay.
Is what it is.
So let me tell you why I asked. Because up in the north, where Nikki and I grew up, we would have little ones like this, and you'd squeeze them, and they would puff a powder.
Right. And that's
Oh,
what
the
that
little
does.
ones.
So that's why I was asking.
And that one's a giant one. It's about, Charlie, that dude was the size of your head, man.
So you could step
bigger
on
than
it.
your head.
Well, we're in Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas than
Correct.
up north.
Always.
And there was about 6 of them around, and I was like, my Lance, look at the size of
I've
these
never
things.
seen one down here.
No, I haven't. No.
It's huge.
But we haven't been invited to his deer leash yet either.
Now, well,
There we go.
actually, these are ones that we just started to look at, and it's on, right on the Navasota River.
Oh, wow.
Right on the Navasota River, man.
Wow.
Yes.
So next cut.
So
is
next
pretty-
cut, sir. Now, this is a little video that shows one of the spots that's out there where we were looking, and it is covered
Oh,
with blue bonnets.
Boy,
I mean, they are just gorgeous out there.
if you can find a field of these,
Look
oh
at the
my
blue
goodness.
bonnets.
Yep.
Isn't that just absolutely beautiful? Now, the landowner had a dozer out there that he'd been doing some work and has done clearing and stuff, but it was just gorgeous. The blue bonnets they had out there were just beautiful. And of course, you'll see all other kinds of beauty that you'll find in the woods. All you got to do is look for it.
Yep.
And what we were doing is we're out there just walking on our deer lease, looking for places to hunt. And this thing's like 200 acres. We spent all day out there walking around.
That's nice.
We'll talk about tired at the end of the day, man. Next one. Now, this is something you run into this is on the other end of the scale from beauty. Trash. Now, I'm going to tell you folks, okay, this is a pet peeve of mine, of people that go out into the wild and they throw their trash down and leave it. Now, this must have been from some people that were maybe a landowner or somebody else that had been out there, or somebody maybe trespassing, but we brought not a wheelbarrow, but a wagon with us because we were throwing out some corn. And I don't know how much trash we filled that wagon up with
that's
just
terrible.
bottles and just other trash we were picking up when we were
up.
walking around.
Clean up.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, that just,
That's a fine in Texas. They're pretty brutal about it, as they should be.
yeah. And this property belongs to people. And I just can't see.
But, you know,
people
I want to
just
make like a
throwing
villain in a
trash.
Disney movie and
You know.
club you like a baby seal for doing that. It's just not
Yes.
cool.
I mean, they just throw it down and forget it, just walk off. I don't get that kind of thing. You know, it just,
Terrible.
I can't.
So don't do that.
Yes. Pick your trash up, folks. Pick it up, please. Next one, Captain. Now, this is you can see more trash, just more litter bugs. I could call them something else, but I would rather not.
We're on a family channel here, sir.
Exactly.
Keep moving.
And next one, please. Now, one of the things we were looking for were deer sign and
You found
wild boar.
That looks like a fairly good size
Look
boar.
at the size of that track. Now, the front two that you see, and then there's a little small one. That's a dew claw. Look at the size of that track. That's got to be a 200+ pound pig. Easy.
Wow, I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah.
Time for Din Din.
You bet you. Pork chops and ribs,
There we
man.
go.
I can see it already, man. Woo. Next one, sir. Some deer sign. This right here, if you look, there's a little dead tree right there, okay? I don't know if you can see it exactly, but it's a little dead tree. That right there is a buck rub. They'll rub on a tree to leave sign, leave smells, and get all the velvet off of their antlers. And they leave sign to show the females and other bucks their territory,
Okay.
territorial signs. Okay. And it helps you find out where other deer are moving. So that's kind of helpful. Saw a bunch of that kind of signs, saw trees that were a couple of 2 to 3, 4 inches around that had sign on them, which was really nice. So it was looking pretty good out there, making me happy. So next one, sir. Now, this was real interesting. We found us a tortoise, and he happened to be cruising through some bluebonnets. I guess he was looking for a female. And that dude was a big tortoise. He was probably, I guess, about yay big around, which
Yeah.
is a pretty good sized tortoise. And you don't find that many in the wild anymore.
Did you have a problem with your dogs tearing those apart? Mine would just grab one of those and shake it until it was no more.
If my bulldogs found one, it was a meal.
I had a collie Sheltie mix, and she would just
Get after it.
shake it until it was no more.
Yeah,
About all I could say.
if I had my bulldogs would one time found one and they turned it into a meal.
Yep. Yep. That was
So-
my dog too.
Next one, please, sir. Okay. This here is at one spot that we also hunt. It's actually only about 15 acres, but it's between about a few thousand acres on each side, and the deer move through. And this is my buddy filming this at our feeder. This is a buck deer. Now, when he lifts his head, you can kind of see where his brisket is. The skin flops and sags. You see that between his legs where it kind of flops. That there will tell you that he's an older deer.
Oh, okay.
Is that
If
supple
he
meat?
was- huh?
Is that supple meat?
And an
That
old
flippity floppity
what
brisket?
it does is what it lets you do is know that he's an older deer because his skin starts to sag.
Oh,
On
yeah.
a younger deer, it's real tight, real firm. The skin is
with older
just
people.
same thing. Same thing.
I'm an older
It works
deer.
the same way. So that gives you an idea of how you can tell when you're looking at older deer and younger deer just by looking
Look
at
at
the
that.
brisket. Just by looking at the brisket. Next one, sir. Now, this was interesting.
Ooh.
Look at this. Just kind of take a look at it.
Wow.
I was about to say, wow, lightning strike. You got the title right there.
This is what we came across later in the day.
Oh, wow.
That's been there for a while.
Earlier in the day. Listen to this. This we came across probably around 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Earlier in the morning, it was real cloudy. We were up on the upper end of the property. That tree is down in the bottom, close to the river. There were 2 other trees that were close to it, and super cloudy, and there was some lightning that was happening first thing in the morning. We come around later in the day, that tree was smoking, and at some points you could look at it and it still had flames about this big coming off of it on certain spots.
Wow.
And if you could show the next one too, sir. And this here was a part of the tree. There were 2 trees that were hit and by lightning, and the lightning ran down, burned them. This is another tree, and you can see how all the branches were knocked off of it when it was hit. The other tree, the lightning hit it and just went down and hit the ground. But these trees were dead trees, and they were really tall, but they had been burned. They just weren't flaming.
Right.
They'd gotten hit by lightning, and this is what the lightning did to them.
Wow.
And a lot of times, this is how forest fires
Get going.
get going.
Yep.
But the thing that was neat about it, it had done a little bit of raining in the morning, and the ground all around there was real damp, and the grass was damp, so it kept it from spreading out. And you can see that around the base of them, that it only went out so far and died, and that was because the ground was so wet. But man, those trees were by at 3 o'clock in the afternoon were still smoking and had a little fire burning on them. It was something to see, I tell you. I've only seen that one other time in the woods, that a dead tree been hit by lightning. It's interesting, really is, except I didn't have a camera at the time.
And that's why we know that it's quite natural to have small localized forest fires. By the way,
That's correct.
did y'all know that the Sierra Club's ideas about not cleaning the underbrush are ultimately from 1800s German thought, just like critical theory, just like Marxism? Need I continue? But anyway, keep going.
Yes. Let's keep going.
Same.
And now we have the Capitol.
There we go. Alrighty. I don't know where the piano music went, but
I didn't delete it. Someone messed that up. Oh, well. Just
did I?
continue on.
Okay, I didn't.
I have no idea what you did.
What'd you do?
You're the one that pasted that one in.
Sorry.
Go
I
ahead.
guess that's
What are we reviewing?
Anyway.
What are we reviewing?
Camera on
today?
myself, that'd probably be good. So today's song is After the Storm Blows Through by Maddie and Tay. Now, any country fans out there probably know who these two girls are. They're a couple of lifelong best friends, I believe. And this is probably one of the best secular songs that I know, because I think it's completely clean. I think it has a good message to it. I think it promotes godly principles. Now, I think these two girls at least claim to be Christian. I don't know how deep they are in their faith, but I think it's a good, clean song that promotes godly principles. So let's dive in here. Right, verse 1, you've been walking around with a dark cloud hanging over every step you take, like the slightest breeze will knock you to your knees, doing your best not to break. Wish I had the words to tell you, but I got an umbrella, and I think it's big enough for the both of us. And the chorus, I'll face that wind by your side, even take on that rain, I don't mind, or give you space or give you time if you need me to, but I'll be here for you after the storm blows through.
True friendship.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's godly friendship right there.
Yes.
And it reminds me of how, I believe it's somewhere in Galatians, Paul talks about how we should be bearing each other's burdens. And
Yes.
it also reminded me of John Arthur, correct me if I'm wrong here, the Greek word for Holy Spirit, or
Yes.
who's called our comforter, is paraclete, which means one who comes alongside you,
Correct.
walks through life with you, right?
With discipleship, you are parakaleoing.
Yes.
So you are to disciple, you're to come along as the paraclete does.
Yes, and that's what the Church of Jesus Christ should be doing for each other, walking through life with each other.
He used to call it paracleting.
Paracleting?
Parachute.
Did we really?
I like.
No.
No, I did.
No.
Oh,
I
you did. Okay.
I've done that.
We means me in his
Me and my friend.
lexicon. Yeah.
What you doing there? Paracleting? No.
Yeah. Paracleting.
Okay. I see. And verse 2, you know, you and me, we've been thick as thieves. You get cut, I feel the pain. We're stuck together no matter what the weather, and that ain't gonna change. I don't know how long the hurt will hold on or when the sun will shine again. So until then, and then chorus again.
So did they write this as a tribute to their friendship?
I honestly, I didn't
Dive it to
dive it too deep into that. I should have, but I've just always assumed, because, well, I have a country music loving family. I grew up on, this is another one of the many artists I grew up on, so I just assumed, like, knowing their story, how they're like best friends, that's what the song was based on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But that part, you get cut, I feel the pain. It reminds me of that verse where it says, to weep with those who weep, rejoice with those who rejoice.
Yes.
You know, putting yourself in the other person's shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. like I said, it's just a nice, simple little song that it's not,
Yeah.
I don't think it's intended to like full on preach Christ or a Christian, intended to full on preach a Christian message, but it's a song, it's a good, one of the best secular songs I know because I think it just so fully aligns with scripture and what it teaches.
Well, Lewis, who we're not going to get to today, in Mere Christianity, and also in The Great Divorce, alluded to art being man's attempt to grapple with the divine
Mhm.
and to attempt to recreate it through the artist's medium, whether that's song, film,
Mhm.
painting, whatever it is. You are attempting to understand and grapple with the divine. And that's why true art is inspiring. Objectively beautiful art is inspiring because it's really taking the notes or the images from heaven and translating them into something earthly. And that's why Lewis is actually a proponent of artists will only be performing with the ultimate artist. They will not be creating their own art. They will only be kind of fulfilling that, but there will be no more need for human-made art in heaven. Which, but rather
Interesting.
a function of working with the heavenly chorus or working with the heavenly painting, whatever that may be, which I think is fascinating.
Yeah.
So, but that's why it's beautiful, even if it's secular. If it's true,
If it's true,
it
yes.
will be beautiful.
Yeah. But that's the song review for today. Just a nice, short, simple little song to go over today. But we don't have time for the Screw Tape letters, unfortunately, correct?
So
Is
we can try to rush it, or we can just go to final thoughts.
I would final
I think
thoughts.
this
Let's
is
not rush
great.
C.S. Lewis.
This is a
Let's
great chapter. So, guys, sorry we got into the weeds a little bit, but I do think it was worth it. We covered a lot of stuff. Next week we'll get into chapter 26 of the Screw Tape letters. You will not want to miss that. But I want to go to final thoughts for the day, Miss Nikki. We actually have some time today, so.
I would say that I have grieved for a long time on the loss of masculinity in our country. And I am grateful to see that we have a generation that is rising up to take back their manhood, masculinity with pride. I like that. I know I listened to Nick Freitas, and he just wrote a book on biblical masculinity that I'm sure is wonderful. My granddaughter was just in California to hear him speak not too long ago. But it's been a problem. It really is a problem. And I think that it is a good thing for our society. And I think it's a good thing for women. Women do not need a man to be their friend as a female. A lot of times women get married and then they try to turn their husband into another female. And not a man.
Yeah, and they want a girl bestie.
Yeah, that's what they're looking for, and they don't understand.
Mostly women on the pill. I'm just saying that it has a scientifically verified effect.
I'm not going to take up much time, but whenever you hear women say we don't need men, you're very uneducated.
Well,
you're very naive. I
and
heard
men need women too. We need each other.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, so please don't say I don't need women, or please don't say I don't need men, because you're really not. It's not a very.
It is an ignorant thing
Yes,
to say. By
yes.
definition, we need each other.
Absolutely.
And we were designed that way.
We were
for a
made to
purpose.
complement each other.
Absolutely.
For a purpose and for a reason. And it's a glorious thing.
Yes.
Steve.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing in the same manner like Nikki, and it's it is great to see young men looking at masculinity as something that is good and beneficial. It is about time that we get off this toxic masculinity, because it has done nothing but destroy America.
Well, you know what the toxic masculinity claim is ultimately from people who are toxically feminine, who want to marry men who are truly toxically masculine. Toxic masculinity was perfectly modeled by Adam in the garden. Oh, Lord, the woman that you gave, he did it.
Right.
An effeminate man.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, but manly men, ones who take responsibility
for their action,
ones who build things, ones who are protectors.
Correct. and do for women, and are willing to take care of their women, take care of their children, take care of their wives, take care of widows and orphans. Men that are in churches and see the needs of widows and orphans and do things for them. Have a men's ministry at a church where men get together and do men things.
Go shoot guns. Go fishing.
Yeah.
Have men's, have men-only spaces, have men's Bible studies, have a group of men that goes and helps the widows and orphans. That is literally what the deacons are supposed to do.
Exactly.
They are the diakonos in the Greek. They're supposed to feed the homeless, help the widows and the orphans. Like, that is our job.
It's exactly
and
right.
If your church is not doing that with the laity, that is a mistake. I love Melissa Perry's. She actually wanted to write just to you. She says, I once enraged a feminist by saying, as long as there's a man in this town related or married to me, he's the one that's talking to the police. You know what? I agree. And to Steve's point, I love what Andrew Wilson said. He says, okay, so if there's a man in your home and there's a 2 a.m., the door bangs or the glass gets knocked out, who's going for the gun and who's going downstairs? Well, obviously the man. Who's the one who's supposed to provide the bills? The man. Who's the one that opens the door? The man. Okay, so you've defined men's duties. What are women's duties?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's about time the church reclaims that narrative of a complementarian and not an egalitarian narrative. The two are different.
They're very different, and they
Equal
both have their own responsibilities, and they both complement each other so that they both become one and go and move forward for the same goals.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Now that I can get off my soapbox,
Charlie,
thank you.
Two things. Number one, for those that may be new to the podcast and this is your second time listening to us, we can't play the songs legally. We can't do that. So when Ryan's doing his song review,
Oh yeah, I wish we could. but
yeah, it
sorry,
would be
guys.
nice to do that.
we get dinged.
So I just wanted to remind people that. Number two, I was heartbroken over that video of the two men and the baby.
Oh yeah.
That it is gut wrenching to see something like that, and I wished that that people could see the goodness of God. They can if they would just open their eyes. But when we are anti-authority, when we are anti-God, when we are for ourselves, it becomes very difficult to see God, because basically you have filled your glass with yourself, and you have not emptied the glass. Before you can see God, you've got to empty yourself.
Amen. Mr. Producer.
Hold on. Put the camera back on me real quick. Okay. So I like what Mr. Steve was saying, and Mr. Charlie, I agree with you about that video. That was really hard to watch. And Mr. Steve, I love what you said about how the child knows it has a mother. And I was thinking, while we were talking about that, the whole time I was just thinking about something my dad said, like, you can just look at nature. Like, you don't see two female dogs mating. You don't see two male elephants mating,
If you do, something's gone wrong.
Yeah.
Very wrong.
It's not
yeah.
natural. And like, even like being attracted to the same sex is not natural. Like, I believe, John Arthur, correct me if I'm wrong again, but the statistic, we looked at multiple statistics on this podcast before, like most homosexuals, like, were abused or assaulted.
Pre-rapid onset gender dysmorphia, so i.e. the 20 teens, it was approximately 90% had verified cases of abuse.
Yeah.
Of all LGBT. It is, by definition, abuse breeds abuse, and then we don't put away the PDFs who do this thing, and we don't put them to death as we should. We let them out in 3 years, and they do it to 5 more, and we let them continue. It breeds more abuse, more confusion.
Yeah, but it's just not natural, and like, you just have to look around you and just stop and think for a second, like, why are things the way they are? Why don't you see homosexuality in nature? Why are men and women inherently attracted to the opposite sex, right? Like, just stop and look around you and think for a second.
You'll know what a thing's for by what it does, right?
Yep.
You'll know what a thing's for by what it does. Sex produces children, and that is the natural end. There is a pleasurable moment, and the in between, the friction can be enjoyable, but the purpose is children, and the purpose is to bring forth new life into a family unit that represents the Trinity. That's the purpose. It represents the man-woman dynamic. Is supposed to represent Jesus Christ. That is the purpose. And what Satan has done is alienated the purpose from the pleasure.
Yep.
And created this secondary thing. The church's job is to change the culture. Yet Satan has alienated the function from the purpose. We have this separation of church and state, which is literally the opposite of what Jefferson was writing to the Danbury Baptists in the Danbury Letters. It is not in the Constitution. If you haven't seen our episode on that, go back and check that out. Why America is a theocracy in the softest sense of the word. But we were founded as a Christian nation. Read the proceedings from the Constitutional Convention in 1790 and 1791 and tell me that those men were not founding a Christian nation. There is a revival happening. We could be on the cusp of a third great awakening, and I pray that we are.
Mm-hmm.
Understand why it's happening is because we have become so seeker-friendly, we've become Christ-adverse. We need to empty ourselves and pray for the Spirit to fill us. Only then can we see a true change. Trump's going to be out of office. If he lives all the way to 2029, he'll hand the keys over to someone else. And that election will breed another election and bring another election and bring another election. The question is do we change the culture? That starts at home, that starts in your city, that starts in your state. Start to live locally, start to focus on being Christ's light. And we might yet see an awakening that does change our politics. It does change our future. With that said, we got nothing else for you guys. We love you. We hope that you have a beautiful week.